Sometimes, the simplest question from a child can shake even the strongest adults. An 8-year-old girl asked President Trump a question that left the entire room in silence. But the real impact was hidden in Trump's response. Austin, Texas, City Hall, 2025. President Donald Trump stood at the podium during a town hall event in Austin, Texas. The hall was packed. Journalists, business leaders, and hundreds of citizens had gathered to hear him speak. Trump was delivering a powerful speech, discussing the economy, national security, and the strength of the American people. But that night, one audience member would make the event unforgettable. Emily, an 8-year-old girl, sat in the front row. She wore a blue dress and clutched an old Bible that had belonged to her late grandmother. Her father had brought her to the event because Emily had a question weighing on her heart. When Trump invited questions from the audience, Emily raised her hand without hesitation. "All right, let's take some questions. Who wants to go first?" Emily's small hand shot up instantly. Trump smiled slightly and pointed at her. "Ah, a young lady. What's your name, sweetheart?" "Emily, Mr. President." "That's a beautiful name, Emily. What would you like to ask me?" Emily took a deep breath and asked the question that silenced the entire room. "My grandmother passed away. Is heaven real?" The entire hall fell into silence. The air suddenly felt different. Journalists quickly raised their cameras. Business leaders exchanged surprised glances. Even Trump, known for his quick responses, paused. This wasn't a political question. This was raw emotion. This was personal. Trump stepped forward slightly, lowering himself to meet Emily's eyes. "Why do you ask that, sweetheart?" Emily lowered her head, gripping her Bible more tightly. "My grandma used to tell me stories about heaven every night, but now she's gone. I just want to know if she's okay. People say different things about heaven. What do you think?" Some in the audience took deep breaths. This was a question everyone had asked themselves at some point. Emily remembered the beautiful nights spent with her grandmother, sitting on her lap, listening to stories about angels and eternal peace. Her voice had always made Emily feel safe, her hands always warm even on the coldest days. "Love never dies, Emily," her grandmother used to say. "If you carry love in your heart, those you have lost never truly leave you." Trump noticed the little girl's trembling lips. He bent down slightly, his voice softer now. "She must have been a wonderful woman, Emily. Can you still hear her voice in your heart?" Emily slowly nodded. "Then she is still with you." Trump straightened up, his expression serious. He had given hundreds of speeches, answered the toughest questions from journalists. But this moment, he was not prepared for this. "Emily, I lost my grandfather when I was young too. I still remember how much I missed him." Emily looked up at him hopefully. "And I'm going to tell you something I truly believe." The entire room held its breath. Trump looked at the crowd, then back at Emily. "Heaven isn't just a place far away. Heaven is love. Heaven is kindness. If you share the love your grandmother gave you with others, then heaven is always with you." Emily's eyes sparkled slightly. "But is she okay?" she whispered. Trump smiled and placed his hand on the little girl's shoulder. "If we never stop loving someone, they never truly leave us. So yes, Emily, your grandmother is okay, and she is always with you." A single clap echoed in the silence. Then another. Within seconds, the entire hall erupted into applause. This moment made waves on social media and news broadcasts. People shared the story, talking about their own losses and beliefs. A little girl made the whole world stop and think. Famous writers, religious leaders, and psychologists debated how this moment had touched people. Emily's question had spread across the country. The impact was so profound that families started discussing loss and love in new ways. Parents spoke to their children about faith, and community gatherings included moments of reflection, inspired by Emily's words. In the weeks that followed, Emily and her father received messages from strangers who had lost loved ones. Many thanked her for asking the question they had been afraid to voice. Others shared stories of how they had found comfort in remembering those they had lost. The story continued to resonate, reaching even those who had never considered such questions before. Schools, churches, and support groups began using Emily's moment as an example of the power of a child's pure heart. Years later, Emily would remember that night as the moment that changed her life. She carried the love her grandmother had taught her and shared it with others. Her words had touched millions, but more importantly, they had shown the world that even the smallest voices can ask the biggest questions. As she grew up, she founded an organization to support children who had lost their families. She traveled across the country, speaking to schools and youth groups, ensuring that no child ever felt alone in their grief. Her foundation provided counseling, scholarships, and support for those who had lost loved ones, giving hope to children facing the same pain she once felt. Emily's simple yet profound question remained a source of inspiration. Documentaries were made about her story, and she was invited to speak at conferences where world leaders and humanitarians gathered. Her message was clear: love transcends loss, and no one should suffer alone. As the years passed, Emily continued to make a difference. She authored a book sharing her journey, recounting the moment she spoke to President Trump and how it led her to dedicate her life to helping others. Her words resonated with readers worldwide, offering solace to those searching for meaning in their own losses. Her story became a lesson in resilience, faith, and the enduring power of love. The question she had asked as an innocent child had sparked a movement far beyond what anyone could have imagined. Emily's story is a reminder to all of us. Have you ever wondered if heaven is real? Have you ever questioned whether your lost loved ones are still with you? Maybe the answer isn't just in faith. It's in how we keep their love alive. If this story touched you, share it. Because sometimes, the simplest questions lead to the most powerful answers.